Next Curve.
Hey everyone, welcome to this Next Curve Rethink podcast episode where we break down the latest tech and industry events and happenings into the insights that matter. I'm Leonard Lee, Executive Analyst at Next Curve. And in this Next Curve Rethink episode of the ComTech series, which is commercial tech series that I do in collaboration with Tech Guile and Tantra Analysts, we'll be talking about a really hot topic. This is a topic that is starting to get hot, which is the AI Workstation. And of course, I'm joined by the amazing Anurag Agrawal, who is the Chief Global Analyst of Tech Guile, right? Not just the Chief Analyst, you're global.
That's a fancy title of saying that, we are a global organization. That's all it is.
Yeah, so I think I need to promote myself this year to executive or global executive analyst.
That's what you should do. Absolutely. You should do that.
I think I need to do that. I think I deserve a promotion this year.
In fact, I've seen that many of the analysts, independent analysts, have actually copied a similar title now. So,
really?
Yeah, global analyst. Okay, all right.
Wow.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so we'll have to think about the next level stuff here very shortly, because if everyone becomes a global analyst, then we might have to go elevate things up to the galactic level.
Yes. Absolutely.
So before we get started, remember to like, share, and comment on this episode, and subscribe to the Rethink podcast here on YouTube and Buzzsprout to take us on the road and on your jog, on your favorite, listen to us on your favorite podcast platform. Also check out and connect with Anurag and the amazing work that he does at Tech Guile. And also remember, all opinions expressed by my guests are entirely their own and don't reflect those of mine and Next Curve. We're here to foster an open forum for discussion around the hot topics in tech, especially commercial as well as consumer tech, right? I mean, they kind of ride a fine line and oftentimes use the same hardware. But let's get started, Anurag. I wanted to start off with this. We're going to be talking about AI Workstation, but I want to ask you, what happened to the AI PC?
It is a form factor that is still waiting to capture the imagination of both the consumers and the commercial segment, waiting to take off. I don't know when that waiting period will be over, but it's not there.
Oh, okay.
And it's not coming out. It's not coming up very soon.
Yeah, I tend to share your sentiment. I think that's something that the industry has started to come to a reckoning with. And as we all might recall, it was just a year ago that Copilot Plus PC was introduced, and it was introduced with Qualcomm's Snapdragon X Elite. Actually, it was the series, right? Because I believe they also had X8, SoC released at the same time.
I think, it's the Snapdragon X series, yes.
Right, but even before then, I mean, the AI PC topic was a big one, and a lot of it actually really stems from the x86 or the PC world trying to catch up with what Apple had done. So I think a lot of times we forget about that. And technically, the first AI PC, or one with what you might call an AI accelerator, was AMD, although you'll have Intel and everyone argue that they already had one way before AMD. But when we look at the latest generation of or the latest generation, they were really rooted in this race to catch up with Apple, because Apple with Apple Silicon had introduced an NPU with their first M series, SoCs for the Mac. So just, a little bit of background for folks to remember where we got with this AI PC conversation. And it got supercharged, right, as you recall, Anurag, when ChatGPT was announced. And then there was this whole idea that, hey, we can also run these large language models and other types of generative models on device. And, I'd have to say that a lot of that was spearheaded by Qualcomm, just because they have that genealogy or that, legacy in mobile that's common with Apple. But it's interesting. That conversation was largely dominated by the NPU, right? And so, I thought the CPU was more of the transformative thing, right? Because X series really changed the conversation around battery life. I don't know what you thought, Anurag, but
it is true. And I think battery life is absolutely, matters a lot. And, Snapdragon's X series, which, as you rightly pointed out, the X Elite and the Snapdragon, I think they call it the X Plus processors.
Yeah, that's right.
The X Plus.
Right. X8 is for mobile.
Yes. So X Elite and the Snapdragon X Plus. They are the ARM-based chipsets. So they were pretty ideally suited. And I think, we've tried different machines, right? From Dell and Lenovo and all, right? So, and they have also got a pretty industry leading, that AI engine with the Hexagon NPU also along with that, right?
Right.
And they've got this 5G capability and the Wi-Fi 7 capabilities and things like that. And then came along Intel, right, with their Ultra series, I think. The Intel Core Ultra processors. I think the Series 1 and there's some Series 2 which is coming up, right, which have got the Intel Boost NPU and things like that. And now AMD came out with its with a fanfare, right? Their Ryzen AI processors. I think they were the Ryzen 7040 or 8040 and the Ryzen AI 3000 series, I think, or maybe 300 series is what they call it.
That's right.
So after this Chat GPT, it did capture the imagination of the commercial segment, right? But the value prop, to quote a oft repeated statement, the value prop is not really coming through, right?
Yeah.
We write as many case studies as we can as to how the AI PCs really drive productivity or improve security and things like that. But the reality is the very vast number of organizations don't even look at those things when refreshing their PCs. Yes, battery life makes a whole bunch of difference. But if you look at our own study, if you look at, sorry to quote my own study.
No, do it, please.
But when you look at a study that we did last year, there was the intent to buy AI PCs was extremely high.
Yeah.
Right. But we recently completed another study with about 2,000 SMBs, not the commercial segment, not the enterprise segment this time. Last study included the enterprise segment. This year, when we did the study only with the SMBs, we find that of all the features, functionalities that an SMB looks at in deciding what type of PCs to buy, AI PC capability is number 11th on the list.
Oh, really?
Right. And again, it goes back to the same point that performance, the CPU, the NPU, the RAM, the storage capabilities, they always stop. And then the security features and all that. So I think the onus lies on the PC OEMs and including Microsoft, right? Because they are pushing their Copilot plus PCs to really connect the dots.
Right.
Performance, with the AI PC. And I think they have to be juxtaposed in a way that they cannot be separated. Because I think everybody has got caught up in the fact that AI PCs, we need to have certain applications. But once you establish that performance, the CPUs, the NPUs, and all are directly connected to the AI, then other things can start to fall into place at a later stage.
Yeah. Okay. And so the AI workstation, I was at actually for a while. I've been looking at this category largely because we've been having a lot of conversations with our friend Rob Herman, who is the VP of Workstations at Lenovo, and they, as you know, Lenovo has this whole concept of pocket to cloud, right? So they're one of the few companies that actually has a portfolio that spans handsets, so your smartphone, all the way to these hyperscale or uber scale AI data centers in the cloud. And they have this notion or this concept of hybrid AI, right?
Yep.
That overlays this. And so, I've always thought that the AI workstation would genuinely have a very interesting role for a lot of reasons. But you recently wrote a piece, which I read and I thought was really well done. It's called Realizing AI Potential, Why Lenovo AI Workstations Should Be at the Heart of Compute Strategy. I thought that was really an enlightening piece. You beat me to the punch, by the way, because I'm actually writing a piece.
Leonard, I can never beat you to the punch.
Don't say that.
As I told you that, right? It was just maybe a timing thing. But I cannot beat you to the punch. No. See, my analysis, our analysis, my TechAds analysis is basically rooted in data. And your analysis is very much goes down into the technology, the vendor strategy, and so on and so forth. So I can never beat you to the punch.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's not true. Hey, everyone, don't listen to him. Okay. Yeah. He's being way too modest. Oh, geez. Come on. So the audience wants to know, what are the insights that you got out of this? And I really want to talk about some of the key points that you've made here, because I think they're very interesting and something that will definitely shape the conversation around AI workstations going forward.
Absolutely. So I think your observation and your bringing out the point about pocket to cloud is a very relevant one. And what we are finding is that, AI, the workstations per se as a category is seeing a resurgence, right? I think, 2022, 2023, there was like a downward trend. But now AI workstations, they are kind of beyond the basic AI PPCs.
Yeah.
They have a very core role in AI development, and they have the capability to really handle compute heavy tasks at a local on-prem, so to say, right? Such as model training, image generation, real-time analytics, and so on and so forth, right? So I think the piece that we wrote was based on about several interviews that we did, qualitative or depth interviews that we did with about 20 or 24 odd different companies that are using AI workstation, specifically looking at how they are using, Lenovo's AI workstation to really understand as to where they are being used. So in a way, what I'm saying is that they actually fit into the whole continuum strategy, right? You have an AI PCs at the one end of the spectrum, then you have these workstations, then you have the compute servers and HPC and all those. So they kind of fit in very, very neatly.
Yeah. And I think one of the big factors that you do cite in your paper is security. And data sovereignty, yes. Probably it depends on how one thinks of data sovereignty, but definitely the ownership of data, at different scales, right? But my view is, and based on my research, one of the biggest challenges with bringing these generative AI applications, models, and systems to the enterprise is the challenges you have with security. And I don't mean just generic or high level or network level access control. We're talking about at the knowledge level or the data level, right? When we think about data, we typically think about either unstructured data that's managed in, let's say, a content repository or a content, management system. Okay, they're tagged. I mean, it's all the old school web stuff, right? And then the RDBMS, right, which is a relational database. And what we need to recognize, and what a lot of enterprises, a lot of people, a lot of companies that I talk to, and a lot of vendors actually, Anurag, that I speak to, don't realize the difference between security at that level and let's call it enterprise security, the broader security, security at a network or app level. This is really important, and for some reason, this has been overlooked for 2 years, more than 2 years, because still a lot of folks don't know about this. And this is also one of the reasons why vector databases are starting to come out of vogue, because you cannot institute, let's say, embedding level controls, role-based controls on these things. And so when you look at how different groups within the organization can leverage these tools at a larger scale, you really do need to figure out, how do we bring them into confidential and trusted environments, right? It's really weird because, these systems can overshare. Generative AI applications can overshare like crazy. And so in order to design these systems in a way where they are truly secure and don't create data and security and confidentiality risk for your company, you need to be able to place these things on premise or again within the control of the enterprise, right? And so this is where I think the argument that you make in the paper about security is really, really important.
Yeah, we found that security obviously comes up at the top because of the capability and then of what the workstations offer. But you can also argue the other side that what prevents these organizations from using on-prem compute servers, right?
Yeah.
That means they can offer the same capability, but then the on-prem compute servers with AI capabilities are a lot more expensive than a typical workstation.
Sure, right.
For example, you look at, we're talking about Lenovo, the ThinkStation P series and the ThinkPad P series, fit very, very neatly, just before the compute servers, right? And what we found that when we talk to, say, the R&D folks, right, or when we talk to the graphics and media generation folks, during this process of this study, right, they said that they actually are very helpful because they manage these workstations, manage security, but also they have this powerful GPUs, right, which you can use for rendering special effects, complex simulations, and so on and so forth. And we talked to a bunch of pharmaceutical firms too, right, which for them security is paramount, right?
Yeah.
And they said that if we are using workstations for drug discovery and even material science, right? Like molecular simulation, protein folding, virtual screening, and so those are the elements which are really, really important, which kind of take advantage of the capabilities that an AI workstation offers in terms of security and its other capabilities.
Yeah, and one of the things that I saw at ComTech this year, which was really interesting, is this actually pretty prominent movement toward trying to bring, let's say, a large model like DeepSeek's R1 to a workstation form factor. And, as you very well know, workstations are typically much a higher power in terms of their compute capability than a typical, desktop or laptop, right? I mean, and so what you're seeing are two things. Number one, the models are getting smaller. They're also becoming much more efficient. So a lot of the Chinese models have created, let's say, this, I don't want to call it a revolution, but this inflection point in the economics and efficiency of large scale reasoning models, where now you can actually deploy them on a workstation. Now, albeit you still need a good amount of compute, but that is a huge statement in that you already brought up, hey, let's say enterprise server or server might be something that you would want to deploy a workload like that on, but actually you're increasingly able to deploy very capable generative AI workloads and applications and models on a workstation, right? And so this is where I think, again, the capability gets married with the security benefits that you can realize with deployments on workstation, right? And so let's say that you have a department or a group that's working with sensitive information or confidential information, and you want to isolate the access to those generative AI applications just to those groups, that group, then you can deploy it conveniently on a workstation versus having to, deal with all the security hoops and that you have to jump through maybe with the cloud deployment. You know what I'm saying?
You are absolutely right, and I think what we find is that these AI workstations serve as the essential foundation for these hybrid AI strategies, which you kind of brought up at the start of this podcast, right? And they act as the on ramp and a powerful local hub. Actually, within a distributed ecosystem, right? They actually, what you're saying is they engage, they enable agile experimentation or local development or seamless integration with cloud and the HPC resources. In fact, what we are also finding is that they are actually suitable for three different types of AI workflows, right? These AI workstations, right? One is what we call as the research workflow. The number one, number two is the development workflow. Number three is the production workflow. And this is where we are seeing, and some of the elements that you are talking about, right? The research workflow is, experimentation, open-ended goals, tolerance for failure, things like that. The development workflow is, where your real world deployment, full control over the pipeline from local data curation to training and simulation, and production workflow, because they can enable containerization, consistent image deployment, things like that. So yes, so they have a really, really good role to play, right? And they can form, normally what happens is, right, is like the AI compute continuum, right? As I said, range from AI PCs to workstation servers and HPC clusters, but you can also argue that there is a significant overlap between all of these, right? So the optimal placement of AI workloads across these tiers or continuum is dictated by factors like cost effectiveness, latency requirements, security, data sovereignty, scalability, and complexity, and all that. And one of the points I would just like to bring up, sometimes people say that workstations are not scalable, right? Hey, unlike compute or the cloud servers. But if you think through it, right, and then giving a plug to this Lenovo ThinkPad P series and ThinkPad, ThinkStation, I think the P7, P5, or PX series when you pair it with NVIDIA AI Workbench, or you can, or use Intel's AI software stack. I think they call it the Open Vino,
Yeah.
right? Or Open
Yeah.
API. They
Yeah.
provide the real flexibility and the scalable development environments, right?
Yeah.
To manage these fluctuating workloads, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're making a really good point here, because as an enterprise looks at their AI pipelines, right, and their ops holistically, and they look at, let's call it the infrastructure fabric that from pocket to cloud that they want to deploy, they need to look at this stuff holistically. But I think the point that we're trying to make, and this is where I think the industry is also coming to the recognition that the workstation has a unique role.
Yep.
Right. And you're spot on. It's like we're reading each other's minds. It's weird. So if you're coming from a data perspective, I'm coming from a technology perspective, we're having a meeting of minds here, because I describe it as a sort of a beachhead vehicle, right? It can establish the beachhead for the enterprise so that it has that enterprise of whatever scale has the ability to bring these capabilities that are being built up in the cloud, right, down into the enterprise in a secure and let's say a securable way, right?
Yep.
And when I talk about security, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier about security. Is not just about the network security and securing the app. It's about down at the embedding or the knowledge level to prevent oversharing and to be able to truly secure these applications, right? Which at the moment isn't happening, which is why you're seeing a lot of these generative AI really not making it down into the enterprise at the pace and level that a lot of folks had anticipated.
Yeah.
Right. Because I still hear about POCs. Well, we're doing POCs. I mean, we're 3 years into this thing, right? And we're still doing POCs, and people have to recognize it wasn't ChatGPT that started the generative AI, exploration by enterprises. This started a year, 2 years before. And, I've been exposed to this stuff for like 7 years, right? Because I work with a lot of the silicon company, the semiconductor companies that have been working with these research organizations that have been building this stuff, right? So that I think we are onto something, though.
Yes. I think, and I think that this point about POCs is interesting, right? I mean, depending upon whose data you see, some say that only 10% of the Gen AI projects, POCs go on to become full projects. Somebody else's data, you see that 70% of the organizations have already put Gen AI projects in production. But I would like to quote, I think most of the organizations make a mistake as to which POCs they start to work with, right? There is a highly accomplished and recognized executive consultant and thought leader in the field of Gen AI. Her name is Sol Rashidi, SolRashidi.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like her. I like her description that before you really embark on any kind of a POC, you kind of need to plot your projects or goals or objectives on a two scale. On an x-axis, you can think about what is the criticality of this Gen AI project. That means criticality means which one of these will have the maximum impact on the organization. And on the y-axis, you plot it as complexity. And once you have the complexity and criticality, then you decide which one you want to attack. And I think those POCs then become full projects, right? If you go with the highly complex and highly critical, then that becomes as a failure.
Yeah, I mean, but then I have a third access. It's called feasibility.
Okay.
So whatever it is that your board is pressuring you to do, or some evangelist is telling you is possible, is it truly possible? Are you looking at it full life cycle? Because what we have a tendency of doing is listening to folks who are talking merely about the implementation at that point in time, and they don't talk about the whole full life cycle of managing this thing, which so I think as we see the adoption of enterprise AI, especially with workstations, AI workstation, I think there are going to still be some challenges, because one of the things the security industry is now really starting to get concerned about is shadow AI, right? So the question is do these AI workstation capabilities open up the aperture for shadow AI? And what is it that IT organizations can do and leaders can do to control and reduce that, improve the governance around that, right? And then on the other hand, you also have fragmentation of your AI portfolio. How do you get a handle of that so that you can scale and ensure the ongoing, quality of all the AI applications, models, and infrastructure within your portfolio? So these are all still big challenges, especially as you start to move toward this more hybrid, mature hybrid AI, deployment within your organization, right? Which I think is still pretty low in almost every organization out there. So these are really great greenfield things that I think, Lenovo and their kin or their peers are going to be challenged to address.
You bring up so many different and interesting points here. I think this shadow AI, it's a reality, and it'll be a reality for a few years. And the
Forever.
reason is quite simple, right? Because the GenAI project deployment directly addresses the business goals of the line of business leaders, right? Whether it be in sales or marketing or HR or customer service or, operations or facilities or finance or what have you, right? So what is going to happen, and what is already started happening, is that many of these line of business leaders are hiring GenAI experts within their own organization, reporting to them and not reporting into the IT, right?
Yeah.
And then when 74% of the budget for GenAI deployment is coming from the line of business, this shadow IT is going to happen. You cannot really avoid it, right?
Yeah.
So what does IT do? The IT has to be more agile, right? But how can IT be more agile? If AI per se can reduce the time that IT really spends on support and maintenance activities, right?
Yeah.
9% of the time of IT is spent on support and maintenance activities. Can they hire enough skill sets to really, or can they use Gen AI to really optimize that support and maintenance activities, and then hire enough skill sets to really be a partner to that line of business buyer? I think that will take a long time, right? I mean, you can call it AI Ops, AI DevOps, or whatever it is, right? And the other piece you were talking about, one of the things I tell the partners is the channel partners, right? That in AI, do not chase the whale opportunities. What I mean by that is, do not go after that $1 million or multi-million dollar contracts, because that will be very that are going to be very short supply. Because what the end customer is looking for, smaller deals, smaller deployments, see the ROI, then extend it. So they are opening up windows of opportunity. This goes back to your point about, how many POCs can really convert. But if you have smaller POCs, deploy them, showcase the ROI, then you can have a lot more opportunities there.
Yeah, I tend to agree there with you. In fact, I've recently written a piece where I've been advising organizations, let other people make the mistakes and learn from them at this stage in the game, right? Because as the solutions start to mature, that means that the learning has already happened and other people have made the mistakes. I mean, I think we've highlighted this actually.
Yeah.
The people who started off with these massive investments in AI POCs and programs early on ended up with almost nothing, right? But the folks who kind of sat in the sidelines and waited and watched, they're seeing where actually the value is landing and how the technology is progressing and what some of the ground realities are. And so, but that all that being said, okay, there is value to be had. The thing is I guess what you and I are trying to say, and I'm, if I'm putting words in your mouth, you can tell me. The workstation bottom line has AI workstation in particular has a very interesting role that it can play in catalyzing the adoption of generative AI within the organization.
100%. 100%, because I see four different benefits there. One is obviously it's enhanced security confidentiality, right? Which is there. Obviously the long-term cost effectiveness and maybe sustained performance. And maybe, data proximity. You have data within your control. And then you can also talk about the fact that they obviously takes care of the latency issues.
Yeah. So this is going to be interesting to watch, and to see how this particular interest evolves into something bigger. My hypothesis is that this is going to be definitely an integral piece in that whole a hybrid AI continuum, and definitely for Lenovo, I think they're particularly well positioned to make something happen here, right? And
yes, absolutely,
because of their pocket to cloud footprint.
Yep.
Fabrics. We like to talk about fabric. Some people don't like the term fabric, but in this case, we need to have a compute fabric. You have to figure out a way to get all that stuff in the hyperscale, ridiculous cloud down into, the production environments, right? And the production environments are across the edge, right? The edges. So,
I mean, the hybrid AI, the challenge with hybrid AI is also how do you do the orchestration and management, right? I think that's a critical point. How do you do that, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, these are the big problems to solve. That's definitely a big, and orchestration, the capabilities you need are always going to change, right? I think you made the best point earlier, bridge. But if the bridge doesn't exist, there's nothing to orchestrate across the bridges, right? But if indeed the AI workstation can serve as that bridge, cool. Then we can start talking about, sort of this pocket to cloud orchestration, which I think is going to be that tough nut to crack. Because on the other end of it, if you can't do that, then you can't scale and you can't secure stuff, right?
Yep.
And there may be something other that I might be missing. But hey, Anurag, thank you so much for jumping on. This is great doing this.
Thank you for the opportunity.
What do you mean? No, my pleasure. I always look forward to the chance to speak with you and collaborate with you. So to our audience, hey, if you don't know who this gentleman is, he is a global analyst. He's not just any analyst. He's not a principal analyst. He's chief global analyst of Tech Isle, one of the leading research firms out there, especially when it comes to SMB, the SMB market for tech. So definitely, if he's not on your LinkedIn follow list, get him on there, and also follow Tech Isle. Reach out to them at www.techisle.com, right? Did I get that right? And follow this gentleman. And thanks, everyone, of course, for sticking around. Hopefully you learned something here in our chat and discussion on AI Workstation. He and I, Anurag and I, both think it's going to be a thing. Okay,
so I agree. I agree. And I have to live up to that chief global analyst that you have lauded. It's a pleasure.
I don't think you would have called yourself. I don't think you would have given yourself that title unless you were already there, my friend. So, so yeah. Hey, please subscribe to our podcast, which will be featured on the Next Curve YouTube channel, actually, as well as Research Portal. Check out the audio version on Buzzsprout. And also subscribe to Next Curve Research Portal at www.next-curve.com for the tech and industry insights that matter. We'll see you next time. And thank you so much, Anurag.
Thank you.